Good morning, guys. Happy New Year. Hopefully you guys had a really safe and fun New Year. Thanks, David. Appreciate you, man. Wishing you an awesome year, too. Hopefully you guys all had a nice, safe New Year with family. I know I had a nice time myself. Got to hang out with a few of you guys on, was that on Tuesday? Oh, man, Baidu. I know. You know, I liked the way it looked going into Monday. And then obviously you had a little bit of a gap down, but this was just unbelievable strength on Monday where you just get the drop and reversal. Oh, well. Can I explain what I write on the alerts? Yeah, well, I'm just kind of trying to define just so that when the alert comes in, you know, I kind of just can read it and then I already remember exactly what it is that I'm looking at. And these alerts, they actually get sent right into the Discord. So I'm not the only one reading them. You know, there are other people in the room who may not even be on the live stream with me. So they'll see the alert as well. And they may not need to be on the live stream, but they'll know exactly kind of what it is that I'm looking at and, you know, how I may be defining it. So you know, I'll tell you what, I like the ugly close and the gap up. Anybody who sold off on Friday, you know, could very well be chasing something back today. That doesn't necessarily have to be true. But there are some pretty nice looking charts that are tight. So, you know, we'll see if they end up triggering. And how the market's acting when it does. You know, I'm a little bit cautious about chasing a gap up in the morning. I kind of want to watch like the first 30 minutes and then see if we can get like a little bit of a morning washout and then start to take out some of the key levels for Friday. What makes something tight? Well, you got to zoom out on a chart, right? Like look at Baidu. Look at this really big move up and then look at the consolidation, right? Obviously, you get a pretty big move down and then you get another move down. And this isn't even really a big move down considering the move up, but then it eventually builds you a higher low, right? And
I start to look at the key moving averages, right? Everything in here, the moving averages aren't tight, right? But now as you build out the base and then you build higher lows, look at how tight the moving averages actually get in here. So not only does price get really tight, the moving averages get really tight, and then you have to zoom out and say to yourself, what is the underlying trend? Well, using the 200 simple moving average, the trend is actually up, right? So the trend was up. The initial burst was up. The underlying move is up. And I don't just want to hop on a train when it's going vertical. I've missed the move. I need to wait for it to go sideways, right? That's the train pulling into the station. And that's exactly what Baidu was doing right in here for us. The train was pulling into the station. It had gone up, and then it's actually now going sideways. And how do you get involved? Where do you get involved? Why was I interested in it and tweeted about it on this Monday? It starts to look really good, like it's possibly trying to depart the station. And guess what? Depart the station it did. $145 now. So that's the whole idea, right? Remember, stocks go up, they go sideways. The variation of sideways ultimately depends on how big the initial move up was, right? Similar to SanDisk. Such a big move up that this move sideways has required some time, but it's starting to get tight, right? That we're no longer wildly extended from the 50 simple moving average. We've gone sideways enough that price digested long enough that the 50 simple moving average caught up. So that's what you have to remember. Ultimately, how much sideways is needed is very dependent on how big of an initial move it was. Do I think Baidu on Monday was actionable? Yes. And it maybe would have required you to size down just a little bit. The sell-off due to window dressing? No, that's usually when they buy things up, is due to window dressing. No, I feel good, Max. Thanks for asking that. I appreciate you. Would I trim Baidu down if I owned it? No, to be honest with you, I wouldn't trim. Baidu's one of those. If I actually bought this thing like 125, I really don't think I would be trimming, to be honest. Maybe like a fifth to a third of my position at most. But you get a big base like this, and then you zoom out on Baidu. I would just let this one work. Right, there are a few names out there I would just let work. Right, if I own this thing perfectly, I would be thinking about this as a potential much bigger move. Yeah, if I had Baidu from $124, a fifth to a 20 to 30% of my position is what I would trim at max. CSIQ is today the day. Yeah, it's also on my radar. I'm not sure if today is the day, but it's definitely on my radar. I would be careful trading, a base that's this extended. I mean, not that it matters. Could be a high or low setup here. I don't know. Just make sure you know everything there is to know about these biotechs. DraftKings is a no. No, this is still below a falling 200. You leave DraftKings alone. No need for you to trade that. I don't buy stocks that are more than 4 times their average true range from the 50. I don't really think about the 20 simple moving average to judge extension. You got in at 124, but your position size was pretty small. I mean, then just let it work. Let it work. Maybe it goes to 200 for you. Maybe you get stopped out lower. I mean, that's just the dice you got to roll. But at this point, it shouldn't be a red trade, which is all that matters. Do you have a particular rule when you are buying a pullback / breakout? Well, those are two totally different things, and the rules set for both are different. You spot many, but you often get yourself into paper cutting 3-4 times before hopping on a trend. Am I doing it wrong? I don't know that you're necessarily doing it wrong versus you're just executing when the market direction's not at your back. So I think that's the important part. And don't worry, dude. December's been pretty difficult in general. So doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing it wrong, but just make sure that if you aren't hopping on a trend, well enough that you just need to size your positioning down until the market gets easier. Remember, it's not that you're some genius stock picker. It's that the market is so easy. A lot of things are going up in an easy environment. So you're basically just, as a swing trader, you're basically your portfolio's going sideways till you hit that little pocket of 2, 3, 4 trades in a row that work, that allow you to trim into strength and then trail, and then it becomes a little choppy again. And then when you get yourself into a really easy environment, that's how you end up getting yourself fully invested. So you're not really doing it wrong, but the one thing I would tell you is make sure that you're looking for stocks that are in leading groups, right? Don't be trading stocks that aren't in leading groups. Cypher, tied off this support. We could bounce here, but we're below a falling 50, so I would just personally leave it alone. Baidu on 9/11. Yeah, maybe. It's a really short. I probably wouldn't have traded this, honestly. For me, the entry was down here, and it was a heck of a lot better. I like BTU. Yeah, I like BTU. But it kind of needs to get going over, what is this, Thursday's highs? Tuesday's highs? So I kind of have this as a potential low cheat setup. I don't think Tesla's acting all that great. I mean, I was hopeful that, it's not acting all that terrible either. I was hoping that price would kind of come into the 50 simple moving average, and then I would look for a 620 setup down here. That was my initial hope. Obviously, we get a gap up, and this morning the gap up was as high as like 162 and a half. So they would have made that pretty difficult to buy. They have a gap up going on that takes out Friday's highs, or sorry, Wednesday's highs. My hope is that you can pull into the 50 simple moving average and get a 620 setup, but we may not get that today. So, now I kind of just got to hope we build a higher low over the next few days. There's not really a whole lot going on with it. COHR, yeah. Yeah, it's not bad. Good, but not great. Short setup on IBIT. I don't know that I'll be shorting any cryptos down here, to be honest with you. A little bit extended from the 200 at this point. I'll just be an observer, not a trader. No. I don't think I would be a trader of AXTI. Yeah, more than 4 times its ATR from the 50. Thoughts on Rivian? I don't think I'd do anything with it just yet, personally. Yeah, that's the idea, Ivan. Your scans narrow down the amount of stocks when you filter from the top 30 groups. Yeah. You don't want to have your eyes on, 200 names, right? You just like your head just goes too crazy. And then one stock's going, but the one stock you were watching maybe isn't. And then you just like stop watching the stock you were watching and you start watching something else. And then, you're feeling like you're missing something else because you didn't pick the perfect stock on the day. It's like, just wait. That's just like overkill, right? Narrow down your focus to the very best groups, narrow down your focus to the very best setups you understand. Try to time your entries out with a good market. And then the stocks that you're watching that day either are doing something or they're not. And then, narrow your focus. What do I think about Wayfair? Yeah, nice little base after a move up. Nice little base. I don't know that I'm chasing Wayfair this morning, but, nice little base. I like A-Lab. This is another one that I think is a low cheat setup. We've kind of seen this. We've seen part of this movie before, where you make a nice move up, you pull back quite a bit, right? Where you end up pulling back 60%. You come back up, and then you build a low cheat setup. Similar story. Big move up, pull back quite a bit, about 60%. This was like 50%. And then you start to push back up again, and you're starting to build a low cheat setup again on the right-hand side. So, is this what's starting to happen here similar to what happened here? Maybe. I like A-Lab personally. What I really like is their earnings and sales. What do I think about ONDS? Pullbacks to ascending moving averages on this one feel like they were easier. Um, I don't know. It's just been a little sloppy in here. Not something I'd really take. I know a few guys I bought this as a higher low setup on Tuesday. Good for them. This was the, right idea. Right in here, and then, trim some off maybe by Wednesday, and, you're just kind of sitting in the driver's seat at this point. But that's about it. Non-below. Random. VFC. 200 still sloping down, so this is going to be choppy in the meantime. I don't think about the VIX, to be honest with you. What were some of my favorite setups when I was day trading? My favorite thing to do was to trade sympathy plays. Those were my favorite setups. NXT stuck in this super ugly range, needs to get going over 93.5, or this just got to get left alone. Yeah, in the room, I explained how. So it's ADR I calculated over 20 days, so effectively one trading month. And then what you're going to do is you're going to, when you're measuring extension from the 50 simple moving average, you're taking the average daily range of the last 20 days, and then you're dividing it by the distance from the 50 simple moving average, and that will give you your multiple in terms of a distance of how far from the 50 you are. So you move 4% per day. The stock is 20% above the 50 simple moving average. That means it's 5 times its ADR or ATR from the 50 simple moving average, which means I leave it alone. So I do not try to buy stocks that are more than 4 times their average true range from the 50. In a higher low setup, do you usually enter on the 5-minute time frame looking for a 6? Usually when you do a 5-minute opening range break, you've already triggered a 620 setup. And on a higher low setup, my entry is really over the prior day high. You bought red at 209. I think that's a pretty great entry, right? 209. So you bought this on Friday the 28th, it looks like. I mean, I think Reddit looks pretty dang good. So there's several of them, Gavin. I'm watching like a GMed, a GH, a Firm, Google, Amazon, Reddit, the space stocks, Tesla, SanDisk. I mean, there's still quite a bit of merchandise out there that is holding up pretty well. What do I think about APLD? I don't like it. I don't really see anything to like about APLD just yet. It's got to get over this declining 50. See how this thing rejected the 50 pretty hard right here? See how you broke the 50 and slammed and then built a lower high, right? So until you can get back above the 50, there's no reason to even be thinking about it. Your thought on EXK? That's Endeavor Gold. I don't really like gold and silver here, to be honest with you. So, and okay, so think about it like this. This is your October peak, October 16th, and then you couldn't even take out the October peak. Tell me why gold and silver both took out that October peak, but Endeavor has not. I don't think I'm shorting Tesla. No. It's the one name I don't really want to short. I'd like to be long Tesla. Meta, if it reclaims the 200 simple moving average, yeah, it'd be pretty interesting. It would really help out the communication stocks, but yeah, this thing has to reclaim the 200 simple moving average, or I just have to leave it alone. But if it does, could be a fairly nice setup. Last time it reclaimed the 200 simple moving average, it moved 35%. And the time before that was an even bigger move. So, yeah, who knows? I think Reddit looks great. ASTS is the laggard. So let me ask you something, Gavin. Why is ASTS on your radar? Right? Why would an ASTS be on your radar when you've got Rocket Lab? So why would this one be on your radar when you've got a stock hanging out near a high like Rocket Lab or PL? Right? I think it's fine. I think ASTS is okay, but why would you even want to own an ASTS that's way down here when you've got names like a Rocket Lab that are well above its own peak, not above its own peak, but hanging out right near that October high, and ASTS is not near that October high. One stock is showing you much more demand for it, and it's not demand by traders like me or your Aunt Susie. It's demand by the big boys. And that's not to say this won't play catch up, but I want to own the stocks that are showing much more relative strength within the group. Look at the relative strength on PL, hanging out right near highs. Meanwhile, ASTS would have to go up 38% just to get to highs. Wouldn't I want to focus on the strongest of the bunch? Again, there are instances where you maybe will focus on the laggard a little bit. It's still in a great group. Group's acting well. It's not extended. It's got good earnings and sales, et cetera. It's in the right theme. I get it, right? But you've got two other stocks that are showing much more demand for that stock than an ASTS. I focus on the 10-20 and the 50 when I'm going to really go take my entry. The 50 is the most important for me, and then the 200 obviously sets the underlying big picture trend. Sometimes it's just a 5-minute opening range break for a low cheat setup or a break over prior day high. SNDK, I like SNDK. I think that this sideways action here over the last few weeks has been pretty good considering how massive of a move up it was. My thoughts on GSAT. This one had a nice entry down here that obviously failed. I mean, it gave you a nice little push for a few days, would have allowed you to trim into that strength, and then the rest probably would have gotten stopped out at flat. I don't know that I love it as much right here at the moment. Maybe needs to clean up just a little bit. Yeah, CSIQ is interesting. I kind of do prefer a FSLR, but I'll have my eyes on it. Yeah, I like GH. I think this has done nothing wrong after the big move up. This one was also on my last night's watch list video. Could be a little bit of a low cheat setup right here. And then you've also got GMed. Similar story, right? Nice gap up on earnings. You haven't really done anything. You've just been kind of waiting, with some of the other healthcare stocks. And look at the XLV, fairly similar deal, right? A little pullback, and then you just bounce right back, and you kind of just been chopping around. I mean, GMed's the same thing, right? You get the pullback, you bounce back up, and you've just been kind of doing nothing. No, I don't really think that there's much to do with BABA at the moment. I see the gap up, but I don't really see that there's a whole lot to do with it here. Gap up's fine, but PDD is another one that's interesting. Baidu, the entry was earlier. There's nothing to there's nothing to do. ASML. Oh wow. I'm assuming this has something to do with that Baidu news. Yeah, I think Reddit looks pretty good. I think the weekly on Reddit's even nicer. It's just a clean little cup and a handle. Don't think there's much wrong with it. Did I switch to TradingView? No, all my other charts are still on toss, just this one. It's a tough tape. My only longs at the moment are XOM and NEM. So I've had Amazon, which I let go on Friday. I've had Tesla, which I let go at like 461 a few days ago. I had Palantir. I tried Reddit. I mean, I've been long 4 other names, and they just haven't stuck. So, and Tesla was a pretty decent winner, nothing crazy. And then Amazon, flat trade, Palantir's tiny winner, and Reddit, small winner. So I like CCJ. I think it's a low cheat setup, but it's just pretty obvious where it's got to get going above, right? I mean, we could probably both agree that over $96 would look better. Do I do sector analysis or just stock? No, I focus a lot on group. Group matters a ton. Yeah, Google. I think Google's been one of the better acting, stocks. And the communication sector, the XLC, has been pretty interesting. XLC continues to hold in there pretty well. I think it'll be better once Meta starts to participate. If it starts to participate, that would really help out the XLC. No, I think, I could wait the first 15 minutes. The hope would be we get a little bit of a pullback in the morning, and then we start to reclaim and take out prior day highs on some of these names that I'm watching. So just depends what names I'm watching, but breaking prior day high is my entry on some names like a Reddit, for instance. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. FLNC, I just don't know about this here. I think maybe back above this 20 and back above these little wicks highs. So what is this? 21.15, 20.95. So, 21.25, basically. Thoughts on GEV? This group's a little choppy at the moment. I don't really think too much of it, until we probably can get going. 674, basically. I like GH. I like Lilly. Yeah, Rocket Lab could be a, high type flag trying to set up. I like Rocket Lab. This could be technically a double top short sale. So I don't want to judge it and carry too much of an opinion with it. What I know is a little bit more sideways here would be nice. A 620 setup is just on a 5-minute chart. It's an entry tactic. It's not like a daily setup. A 620 setup is what I use to get into a chart, but my idea for getting into the chart comes from the daily, which is not a 620 setup. My daily setups are going to be high volume closes, earnings gap ups, flat base breakouts, high or low setups, undercut and rallies, low cheat setups. I think that might be it. I probably am missing one or two. Okay. So those are the daily setups that I focus on. I focus on those setups in stocks that are in leading groups and good themes. Okay. So what are the leading themes? What are the leading groups? Okay, great. Then what are the setups that I like to trade on the daily chart that are not extended from the 50? Okay, great. Do they have good earnings and sales? Even better. And then I take it down to a smaller time frame, a 5-minute time frame, and the 620 setup is just a 5-minute entry tactic stacked on top of everything else that I just mentioned. So hopefully that makes sense. If I have a lagging stock in a bullish sector and now it has a good setup, do I take it? Yeah, I'll take it. If they got good earnings and sales, but the group needs to be acting really strong on the day that I go to take it. And it needs to also be acting well on the day that I go to take it. Otherwise, it just continues to be a laggard, right? I need it to act well. So especially on the day that I go to take it. But if it's got a nice tight setup and it wants to go on to work and it's giving me a low risk entry, happy to take it. Thanks, Sergio. Appreciate it. Happy to help, man. Happy to help. PL, yeah, that's exactly why I want PL and Rocket Lab to go sideways a little bit more. The more sideways, the better. Gavin, SMAs on the daily, EMAs on the smaller time frames. Uber's below the 200 simple moving average. I would just leave this name alone. There's no reason to be looking at Uber at all. Yeah, TSM's a nice base. I think, maybe a little bit more sideways here. Obviously, we're gapping up, so not something that I can trade right into supply, but strong chart. FTAI had a nice weekly chart. I mean, buyable a few days ago, maybe, but nothing I could really do with it up here anymore. A low cheat setup is not the same as an undercut and rally. No. A UNR setup breaks a prior left side low and then rallies back through. What do I think of VRT? Yeah, it's below a falling 50. There's nothing to think about it. Yeah, I only have 2 long positions at the moment. Correct. Yeah, I had Tesla not long ago. I had Amazon. I had Palantir, and I also had Reddit on top of XOM, on top of NEM. But I just got stopped out of the other ones, I also have a short on SILJ. I have a short on QUBT. I have a short on Netflix. And those 3 are working well. I journal all my trades, but I don't have a chart, like a chart database. If there's a good looking chart and a good looking setup that goes onto work, I post it in the Discord in like the educational section. But I personally don't keep like an Evernote full of a bunch of charts. That doesn't really help me at this point in my career. Any comments on silver? Yeah, I don't really I personally don't love the metals here. I don't really see a setup to long silver. I thought silver kind of gave a really big extended move, and it could very well be done for now. Looking at BE is kind of breaking down below a declining 50. I would leave it alone. Yeah, personally, I would just leave it alone. A lot of distribution coming into this name recently. I would not be doing anything with it. How would I trade GH? Well, if the XLV is performing well and you can kind of get going over 104.75, I think that would be the most interesting spot. And obviously, if you had like a Eli Lilly or a GMed also acting well with it, or a REGN, and the XLV ETF is performing well, then, could be maybe tradable out over, what is this, last Friday's high? 104.75. What's my view on Carvana? Could very well be a late stage base. I personally do not like Carvana here. So could very well be a late stage base. I wouldn't trade it. Closing the short on SILJ, why would I be doing that? Why would I be closing the short on my silver junior miners? It's not doing anything wrong on the short side for me. I just got to let it work. I went from $1 million to several million. Was there any growing pains on new, larger position sizes? Not really. Just because I really put my brain in terms of thinking in terms of percentage and not in terms of dollar amounts. Like, yes, obviously the dollar amounts, still suck to lose sometimes, but I always try to think about the bigger picture, which is think about things in terms of percentage. And I haven't had a big drawdown on my portfolio in over 2 years. So I know that what I'm doing is working, which is using progressive exposure, focusing on stocks and leading groups, cutting my losses quickly, letting my winners run, being patient with a name like SILJ, even though some people will ask me if I'm getting out of it, right? When something's not doing anything wrong, I just sit there. And if it ends up being a smaller green trade, then it just is what it is, right? I don't sit there and dwell on the fact that, oh my God, it was a bigger green trade, right? The idea is you just have to follow your rules, and, mine are strong enough that they keep me out of big drawdowns and they make me money. So I don't really think about bigger position sizes because it's just a part of the growth, right? The only real difficult part is it becomes difficult to find a bunch of stocks to trade because I need more liquidity. That might be the only real downfall with your portfolio getting bigger. The amount of stocks that you can trade, your universe gets smaller and smaller. That's about it. That's about it. AMD, I don't know that it's totally ready yet, but it is on my radar. It is on my radar. Just needs to get back above the 50, I think, is kind of how I would trade this one. Leading sectors, yeah, FinViz. I also have scans built on TOS. That's fairly helpful as well. There's no setup on XYZ. Yeah, this is horrible. It's below a 200 simple moving average, and this chart looks like absolute shit. So you need to zoom out on your charts. Chart sucks in all sorts of ways. Nokia, yeah, this is interesting. It's just a slow one. I don't know that I'm going to trade Nokia, but it is in the XLC sector. Thoughts on a firm? It does have a low cheat setup. I think 79 was that level. Yeah, 79. Yeah, Wayfair with a nice base by delaying furniture tariffs to 2027. Oh, very nice. Hell of a move. COMM. CommScope. Yeah, not bad. Not bad. Don't really know what to think about it, honestly. I liked COMM down here. Interesting to see it way up there. TE, name's been resilient. I'm not trading this one personally. But yeah, nice. Thoughts on TSEM? A little bit more base considering how big this move up was. A little bit more digestion here. Seems good. I'm pretty sure that was the day where it was at quad witching day. So a lot of stocks had giant volume on that day. Don't think too much of it. I don't do longer term holdings. I'm a trader with my whole portfolio. I don't do longer term holdings because I just don't accept any stocks going down 30, 40% on me. Yeah, I don't personally don't see a setup on TE. Sats look juicy. I thought SATS looked better down here. But yeah, could just be another high type flag. But I thought it was way better down here. No, there's no setup on DraftKings. Stick a 200 simple moving average on your chart. I know it's digesting, but just let it get back above the 200. Like, look at how shitty this chart is. Below the 200, no good. I don't know your size of your portfolio, but 10% position sizes are, kind of where I live. 10% positions what makes me comfortable. I don't know that should trade too much, change too much just because your portfolio is, smaller. Yeah, Jumia is interesting. Really nice triple and then, sideways. A quick little triple here, basically, from when it got back above the 200. How do I find a sector worth to trade? Well, focus on stocks that are showing 90-day relative strength. Figure out what stocks continue to appear on that 90-day relative strength scan, like multiple, right? That'll let you know where money's going. And then know your technical setups. And then execute on a day in which they're acting well. I mean, there's more nuance to that. But that's about the gist, right? When you're scanning, there's going to be a bunch of stocks that hit your radar. If you've scanned through, call it 40 stocks, just 40, right? Names that are liquid, move more than 4% per day, trade, have more than $1 billion market cap, good earnings and sales, and then have, the highest relative strength over the last, 60 and 90 days. Which basket, which sector, which industry group is hitting your scans most, right? Is it semiconductors? Is it home builders? Is it gold stocks? Is it silver? Is it, whatever it might be? Communication sector? Is it the XLV? Is it biotechs, right? What is it? And then are there a handful of stocks within the same group that look great? Which ones look good? Which ones are tight? Which ones have a technical setup that you understand? Yeah, 1 month relative strength is fine too. Zeta, yeah, I mean, coming around. Yeah, starting to come around. Yeah, 1 month relative strength is fine. COHR, yeah, I see the base. It doesn't really get me excited, but Kodak, it's a little meme-ish for me, but yeah, I saw ASML. Guys, I got to get my butt moving. Hopefully you guys all had an awesome new year. Once again, happy new year to you guys. Much love. Thank you guys as always for the questions, and I will see you guys bright and early tomorrow morning. Get your years started off the right way. Even if that means you're doing nothing on some days. So I will see you guys tomorrow. All right. Have a good one.